Hi guys. So welcome to CSAT 2026. My name is Abhilasha and today we are going to be covering some English questions as we've been doing over the last 3-4 sessions. Some more of these. So I've got 4 sets of questions today. We'll be covering main idea and assumption questions in this session. So let's not waste any time. Let's get started, guys. Here's your first set. So this is your first passage. Take a minute, read it, and then we will discuss it, and then subsequently take a look at the questions. So because this is a short passage, I don't think you should take more than a minute to solve this, to read this one at least. To solve, yes, maybe you will take a little bit more time. So here's your question. What is the main idea of the passage? If you look at CSAT, then one thing you will realize is that for most of the questions, now the pattern of CSAT is such that you have short passages with 2 questions. So you no longer have the 3 question passage. Most of the passages are 2 question and the questions are main idea and assumption, or what is the conclusion of the passage and assumption. So 2 question sets are almost a standard. For the last 2 years we've just seen that. So that is what we are practicing. Of course we will keep doing some different types also, but for now let's do this. So let's read the passage together. Climate change is no longer a distant threat. So that essentially means that it is now here in the present. It's no longer something that will happen in the future. It's here now. It's a present day crisis manifesting through rising temperatures, frequent extreme weather events, and ecological disruption. So it's a crisis that's happening now. And how is it manifesting? Manifesting means how does it appear? So it appears to you through the temperatures that are rising. Look at the temperatures in your city, it's going up. Delhi is like 52. Frequent extreme weather events. So you have extreme cold or extreme heat or extreme rain, and that's happening over the last 4-5 years. And ecological disruption. So lot of changes. Despite scientific consensus, policy responses have often been reactive rather than preventive. So now this is very important. It says that even though the scientists agree that this is a problem and it should be solved, government policy is reactive and not preventive. So the government is not looking ahead, it is responding to events, but is not taking a long term view. This hesitance can be attributed to short term political goals that conflict with long term environmental sustainability. So the problem is that every government is looking for that 4 years or that 5 years. So their short-term political goals obviously conflict with long-term environmental sustainability. Which government will say, do away with petrol, do away with all fossil fuel, bring in all the environmentally conscious fuel? It will be difficult because no government will want to fight with their own vote bank. So those are issues, and that is why the governments are generally reactive and not preventive. And yet, unless global cooperation becomes a priority, mitigation efforts will remain insufficient. So the passage says that if all the countries don't get together and work, make climate change a priority, any efforts that we are doing to mitigate means to reduce, right? To reduce this problem, it will never be sufficient. So that's your passage. Let's take a look at the question. What is the main idea of the passage? So your options, of course, are climate change will eventually impact all countries equally. There is disagreement among scientists about climate change. Immediate and collective global action is necessary to address climate change. And the fourth one is technological advancements can solve climate related issues without policy changes. Now, if you look at these options, remember BEAST, we have discussed the BEAST formula so many times, not just once, but multiple times. So keep that in mind and then look at these options. So let's quickly take a look. Climate change will eventually impact all countries equally. Now, this one is an option which is using 2 extreme words. Number one is all. How do we know it is going to impact all the countries? And number two is equally. How do we know it is going to impact all the countries equally? So therefore, option A is not a good idea for us. Okay, so eliminate. Let's look at B. There is disagreement among scientists about climate change. Now, this is false because the passage has very clearly said despite scientific consensus. So that means scientists have agreed. So there is no disagreement in the among the scientists. So therefore, two will be B will be a false option. So eliminate that. Look at C. Immediate and collective global action is necessary to address climate change. Look at that last line of the passage. Unless global cooperation becomes a priority, mitigation efforts will remain sufficient. So, of course, you are able to pick that from pick option C from this line also. So, option C is a good choice for us. Let's look at option D also, which says technological advancements can solve climate related issues without policy changes. Now, there are two problems with this option. Number one is that the author has said that policy responses have to happen. They are not happening. That's one thing. So, to say that without policy changes, something is going to happen is difficult. So, that's the problem number one. Number two, technological advancements was not even mentioned in the passage, right? So therefore D is something that is actually alien to our passage and therefore not something that we need to consider. So eliminate. So best answer for us will be option number C, which says immediate and collective global action is necessary to address climate change. I hope you got that. Let's take a look at the second question from the same passage. This one, of course, is an assumption question. Let's take a look. So, which of the following assumptions underlies the author's argument? Take a minute, read the options, and then we'll take a look at this. So, option number one, countries are currently cooperating sufficiently on environmental issues. Option number B, long term sustainability goals are not politically attractive. Number C, technology alone can prevent climate change. And number four says only developed nations are responsible for emissions. Now, let's take a look. Option number D says only developed nations are responsible for emissions. Now, this is not something that the passage that you can assume from anywhere in the passage. Okay, so that's therefore one option that you cannot have as your answer. Option C, which says technology alone can prevent climate change. Again, the word alone is a problem, so I'm eliminating that. Also, remember, technology is not mentioned. Long term sustainability goals are not politically attractive. And see, this is something that we have understood from policy responses have often been reactive. The hesitation can be attributed to short term political goals that conflict with long term environmental sustainability. So, B is something that we can assume. Look at C. We'll look at A. Countries are currently cooperating sufficiently. No, we know that sufficient action is not happening. So therefore, A is incorrect. So best answer here will be option number B. Okay, I hope you got that. Let's go to the second passage and take a look at the passage. Again, I'm giving you a minute. So this passage, I'll put out the question also. So while economic growth is often hailed as a sign of national progress, it can mask deep structural inequalities within a society. So what we are saying is if economic growth happens, we say that it is a sign of progress, national progress. But it can hide, mask means to hide. So it hides structural inequalities that are there in the society. A rising GDP may coincide with increasing income disparity, where wealth is in the hands of a few. Now, this paradox becomes particularly evident when growth is driven by sectors that benefit a limited demographic, such as technology or France, as it is happening here. Without redistributive policies, that means you redistribute the wealth among all the population through taxation, education, and public health investments. The benefits of growth fail to reach marginalized communities. So, therefore, the marginalized communities are sidelined and they have a problem. So take a look at the question. What is the main purpose of the passage? Is it to argue that GDP growth is an outdated metric of economic progress? Is it to argue that to highlight how economic growth alone does not ensure equitable development? Is it to show that financial and technological sectors are more productive than others? My problem is with the word productive. To propose reforms in the financial and tech sector. The passage does not propose any reform, so therefore D is really not there. Again, C has that comparison which is not mentioned in the passage, so I'm eliminating C. I'm looking at B to highlight how economic growth alone does not ensure equitable development. Yes, we have said that, right? That if you have one and not the other, there is a problem. To argue that GDP growth is an outdated metric of economic progress, the author has not said it is an outdated metric and therefore A will be incorrect. So, best answer here will be option number B. Let's take a look at the second question from this set, which says, what is the assumption that underlies the author's argument? Is it that economic growth always increases inequality? I know always is an extreme word and therefore not A. Look at B. GDP figures are regularly manipulated. I don't know. I'll put a star on this. Okay. Look at C. Structural inequalities can be corrected through policy interventions. Okay, that's interesting. I'll put a star on this. Technology and finance are less important. So I can eliminate these straight away. Now I'm looking at what is my assumption. Is it that GDP figures are regularly manipulated? I know that the passage did not say anything about manipulation of GDP figures. It said rising GDP may coincide with income disparity. So therefore I'll eliminate B also. So my best choice will be option number C. Okay. I hope you got that. Let's take a look at this third paragraph. Again, I'm going to give you a minute to read and then we will solve it together. All right, so let's read this passage. It says electric vehicles have emerged, they have appeared as a promising alternative to internal combustion engine ICE vehicles, primarily due to their potential to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and urban air pollution. So, because they are able to reduce the air pollution and emission, therefore they've become popular and it's a promising alternative. However, so there's a problem. Now, their overall environmental benefit depends on multiple factors, including the source of electricity that is used to charge them and cycle emissions from battery production. So, if the electricity that is used to charge them comes from coal, what is the point then? If the life cycle emission, if you have to waste the battery is in waste, then that is also a problem. In regions where power generation is heavily reliant on coal, EVs may not be a significant net reduction in emissions. Also, the extraction of rare earth minerals that are required for battery manufacturing raises ecological and ethical concerns. So, thus, while EVs are progressive, they're not a silver bullet. That means it's not a one shot solution. A shift to sustainable transportation must also include clean energy reforms and improvement in public transit. So, you need to do a lot of change. What is the main idea? Let's take a look. Electric vehicles are environmentally friendly in all contexts. Guys, I know all will not be correct. So, eliminate. EVs cannot compete with traditional vehicles in performance. The passage does not say that because it has said it is a promising alternative. So, I'll eliminate B. The adoption of EVs alone is insufficient for sustainable transport. Yes, we have said it is insufficient. He said you need more, so therefore C is a good choice. Battery production is the greatest obstacle. No, it's not the greatest, it is one of them, so therefore not D. So best answer will be option number C. I hope you got that. Let's look at the second question also. What is the assumption here? Guys, again, take a look. The assumption is something that you understand. That's true for this statement to be true. Public transportation is more sustainable than private vehicle use. We don't know if public is more sustainable than private, so eliminate. All regions should immediately ban internal combustion engines. No, again, we don't know if all regions should ban them. EVs are currently more polluting than traditional vehicles. Are they currently more polluting than traditional vehicles? No. Rare earth mining has no viable alternative. Again, has no viable alternative is something that I can assume, and therefore my correct answer is going to be option number D. Okay. All right. Let's take a look at the next question. Here's the next passage. Take a minute, read, and then we will discuss. Again, I'm giving you a minute to read this and then we will discuss the questions. So it is saying that wildlife conservation today extends beyond the protection of charismatic species like tigers or elephants. You need to, conserve not just these big species but also the others. It now encompasses entire ecosystems and interdependencies within them. So you are not just looking at, one or two animals, you're looking at the entire ecosystem. Biodiversity loss is no longer viewed merely as an environmental issue but is a threat to human well-being, given the vital roles that ecosystems are playing in so many things: water purification, pollination, climate regulation. Despite this, conservation efforts often clash with development priorities, especially in rapidly growing economies. Balancing ecological integrity with human needs requires not just protected areas but also inclusive policies that engage local communities as stakeholders in conservation. So we are essentially looking at, doing conservation, keeping in mind development and everything. All right. So what is the main idea? Conservation should focus primarily on endangered species. What does it focus on? Not just the endangered species, but also others. So not really a good choice. Wildlife protection must take precedence over all development. No, again, all development, I'll have to put a star on this. Ecosystem based conservation is essential for both nature and people. Looks good to me. Local communities should relocate for conservation. No, no, that is not the right idea. The correct idea is C. So wonderful. All right, let's take a look. This is the last question. So, which of the following assumptions underlies the author's argument? Economic development is inherently opposed to conservation. Okay. Is it really inherently opposed to conservation? The author has not really said that. So, you cannot assume it from any place in the passage. Therefore, let's eliminate A. Local communities are willing and able to participate in conservation. Yes, because if they were not, then there would be this problem, where we've said inclusive policies that engage local communities. Now, if you want to engage them, they have to be ready for it. So therefore, B is a good choice for us. Look at C. Species level conservation is more effective than ecosystem level efforts. The author says you have to protect the entire ecosystem. How are we saying that species level conservation is more effective? Again, remember, whenever a comparison is given, it's always very dicey unless the passage has shown a comparison very clearly. Please don't take that as an assumption. So, eliminate. Look at the biodiversity does not directly affect human survival. This goes against the grain of the entire passage. So, absolutely contradictory. Eliminate. So, best answer for us will be option number B, guys. Okay. I hope you got that. So that's it. Here are your answers. If you have any questions, you can drop in a message in the chat box. Quickly do that. Whatever your questions or your doubts are. And of course, we'll address them in the next session. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope this session was helpful. I'll see you again next week, same time, same place. Remember, it's Tuesdays at 7. We will put out another session, so please make sure you are logged in. Remember to hit like, share, and subscribe. Of course, you know that. So just do that. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a nice day. I'll see you next week. Adios, mere amigos. Bye bye.